Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's pretty laser focused. We're trying to look past all the political noise and really dive deep into the experience of a single person whose job defines community safety. We've got this comprehensive stack of source material on a veteran police officer, Michael Reyes.
Right. 14 plus years on the job.
14 years, he's done everything: patrol, community policing, even intensive investigations.
And this material, it really gives us a rare, boots on the ground view. We're moving beyond the usual policy debates to just understand policing as a demanding human role.
Yeah.
We're focusing on the day-to-day realities, the emotional landscape, and how the job has evolved. For you, listening, understanding Officer Reyes' intent and his operational reality is, I think, absolutely crucial for grasping what community safety even means today.
Okay, so let's unpack this right from the beginning. Before the badge, before the academy. What drives someone to choose this kind of high-pressure career?
You think it's about high action.
Right, exactly. But the source material suggests it's something far more fundamental. For Officer Reyes, the motivation was simple. He just wanted to protect people, to make a difference right there at the local level.
And that local connection is the real insight here. He wasn't drawn in by some, distant notion of law and order. He was influenced by the immediate, visible impact the police had in his own neighborhood when he was growing up.
And the officers who made a difference weren't necessarily the ones making, high-profile arrests.
No, not at all. They were the ones who were just present.
Yeah.
Precisely. And this shapes his whole foundational definition of what a good officer is. The source is really clear on this. The officers he respected most were part of the community. They established a steady, reliable presence, not just showing up when a 911 call came in.
That distinction is such a powerful mental model policing as presence, not just enforcement.
It changes everything.
If the community sees that uniform regularly, and I mean in non-crisis situations, it completely changes the relationship. But I have to ask, based on the material, if presence is the goal, how does an understaffed department even do that when they're drowning in emergency calls?
He described it as a constant, necessary tension. He says that the time spent on community policing, stopping by a local shop, talking to kids after school, it's an investment.
An investment? How so?
Well, the proactive minute you spend building some rapport today is worth, say, 5 reactive hours of investigation or de-escalation tomorrow. It just reduces the frequency and the severity of the enforcement calls later on. The resource isn't just time, it's trust. And trust saves time.
That completely reframes the cost. And this desire for presence, it was really crystallized by a powerful trigger moment for him.
Yeah, a close family friend was a victim of a violent crime.
But it wasn't the crime itself that drove him to the career. It was watching the officers who responded.
Yes. The source mentions how those officers navigated that incredibly traumatic situation. What stood out wasn't just their technical skill, but their ability to handle chaos with professionalism and still show, profound compassion to the victim's family. It showed him how critical it is to have people who can manage life's hardest moments ethically and humanely.
It highlighted the core of the job, really, not just catching the bad guy, but managing the trauma that's left behind.
Exactly. The intent is so often rooted in service and stability. But that brings us to the pathway. Getting the badge is far from simple.
Let's unpack that journey. What does the job actually demand, physically and mentally, to earn that uniform?
The training pipeline is intense. You've got months in the police academy, rigorous physical conditioning.
Yeah.
But while the physical part is important, most of the time is actually spent on intellectual training.
Like what?
Extensive legal education, understanding criminal procedure, and intensive training on use of force protocols.
That emphasis on legal knowledge is so essential because of the weight of judgment. This job isn't about following a flowchart.
Not at all.
Officers are expected to make these rapid legal and ethical judgment calls that affect real lives, often in seconds, and often with incomplete or, contradictory information.
The complexity is enormous. You're trying to synthesize case law, departmental policy, safety concerns for yourself and the public, human psychology, all while your adrenaline is spiking. Officer Reyes said being well-versed in the law is the only way to make sure those split-second decisions are defensible and just.
And what makes this so stressful is just the sheer unpredictability. If you ask about a typical shift, the answer is always, there's no such thing.
Right. No two shifts are the same. That high unpredictability is the constant baseline of stress.
So you could start a day with routine traffic patrol.
And then instantly you're pivoting to a critical welfare check on an elderly resident, then a complex domestic dispute, and right after that, a major traffic accident. The entire emotional and mental demand just resets every single time the radio squawks.
This inherent unpredictability where 1 minute you're talking parking tickets and the next you're at a traumatic scene, that brings us right to the emotional core of the job.
And if we turn that lens inward, what does this unrelenting stress do to the person wearing the badge? Officer Reyes identified the public's biggest blind spot as being centered on the officer's own humanity.
We expect a machine, right? An objective, emotionless enforcer. But we forget that officers bring their own emotions, their families, their personal histories to the job. And they're expected to maintain this unwavering composure no matter what chaos they're in.
This is where that challenge of compartmentalization becomes so crucial. It's a survival technique, really. The source mentions they have to compartmentalize to function. Just imagine handling the scene of a fatal accident involving children, and then 30 minutes later, you have to be calm and professional while mediating a noise complaint between neighbors.
That instant emotional reset, from severe trauma to just routine bureaucracy, that has to be psychologically taxing to an extreme degree.
It is. You can't just ignore the trauma, but you also can't bring it into that next interaction.
And this tremendous mental load is what makes communication and de-escalation the real bedrock of the job. It's not just a buzzword.
Oh, absolutely not. Officer Reyes emphasized that talking, listening, and just calming a situation down are the most important skills they use, far more than anything physical.
And diving into the sheer volume of this work, the source insists that de-escalation makes up a lot more of daily police work than people outside the job would ever realize.
It's the constant, conscious effort to bring the temperature down. The goal, in the vast majority of interactions, is a peaceful and safe resolution for everyone involved.
Do they get specific training for that?
They do. Officer Reyes noted they're even taught tactical breathing techniques, literally how to slow their own heart rate and verbal cadence, just to prevent a non-crisis from escalating for no reason.
Wow. That concrete, detailed training officers how to breathe to stay in control. That shows a real, tangible shift in how the job is executed. Which brings us to the modern evolution of policing. The job today is so different from when this veteran started his career 14 years ago.
The shift has been seismic. Policing now places a much greater emphasis on mandated transparency, on robust accountability, and on focused community engagement. It's not enough to just solve the crime anymore.
Right. How you conducted the investigation is now scrutinized just as heavily as the outcome itself.
And the training reflects this, especially in complex areas. We're seeing these mandatory updates in mental health response and crisis intervention training, or CIT.
Because the officer is so often the first responder to a serious mental health crisis, not a traditional crime scene.
Exactly. Officer Reyes noted that CIT training equips them with specific techniques to recognize different stages of a crisis, to know when to slow things down and which community resources to call on, rather than just defaulting to enforcement.
And technology, of course, plays this huge, complicated dual role in the push for accountability.
It really does. Things like body cameras, better communication tools, data systems, they all increase transparency and efficiency, which is vital.
Mm.
But the source indicates this also introduces a new challenge for the individual officer.
How so?
Well, the body camera gives you that vital layer of accountability, but it also means that every single split-second high-stress judgment call is now going to be reviewed at 30 frames per second over, 48 hours of leisure by supervisors, lawyers, and the public.
That changes the cognitive load profoundly. The officer has to make that quick, legal, ethical decision while also knowing that every gesture, every tone of voice will be dissected later in excruciating detail.
It elevates the standard of performance, which is a good thing, but it exponentially increases the psychological pressure of the moment. And this pressure has, thankfully, fueled a necessary cultural shift around mental health inside the departments.
The old culture of suck it up or don't show weakness is slowly eroding.
It is. The officer highlighted specific coping mechanisms that are now actively encouraged: mandatory exercise, formal peer support groups, and talking openly about the hard calls.
Viewing asking for help as a genuine strength, not a weakness, that has to be revolutionary in this kind of culture.
It is. Acknowledging that the human mind can't just compartmentalize trauma forever without consequence is a huge step towards sustainability in this profession.
Okay, with all that context on accountability, let's drill down into Officer Reyes' specialty, community policing. Why did he choose to dedicate so much of his time and emotional effort to this specific approach?
He defines it as focusing on building proactive relationships. It's about putting that concept of presence into action.
So knowing people's names.
Knowing residents on a first-name basis, understanding the local businesses, grasping the specific issues plaguing a single block, rather than just waiting for a 911 dispatch.
And diving deeper into the analysis here, why does this hands-on block-by-block approach consistently outperform the purely reactive model?
Because prevention starts with connection. It's that simple. When real consistent credibility exists between the badge and the residents, people are just dramatically more likely to communicate sensitive information, cooperate with investigations, and seek help before minor disputes blow up into full-blown emergencies.
It shifts the officer from being, I guess, an occupier to being a problem solver who's actually embedded in the neighborhood structure.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And the rewards for this kind of patient, relationship-focused work must be different than, the adrenaline you get from making a big bust.
They're far more profound. The satisfaction, he says, comes from seeing tangible neighborhood improvement, which is hard to quantify in traditional police metrics.
Yeah, you can't put that on a spreadsheet.
Not at all. He specifically cited watching kids who once avoided officers start to wave or say hello. That little interaction is proof that sustained effort generates community reliance.
That detail is so powerful. When a child's ingrained fear shifts to just simple acknowledgement or curiosity, that is the literal rebuilding of trust, brick by brick.
And it confirms that even in this high-pressure world, the job is sustained by the opportunity to make a tangible, positive difference. But even in a community-focused role, that emotional weight we discussed earlier, it never disappears.
No, it doesn't. Officer Reyes confirmed that calls involving families or children are especially hard. They leave a lasting emotional mark. You can't compartmentalize the sight of a child in danger the same way you can a noise complaint.
And processing these deep, difficult experiences Acknowledging them, having those tough conversations with peer support is absolutely essential for his ability to continue serving with integrity and empathy. The source makes it clear. A healthy officer has to confront the emotional cost, not bury it.
So synthesizing the core takeaways for you, the learner. We've seen that modern policing requires so much more than just enforcement. The job demands integrity, immense patience, and radical empathy at every turn.
And success, according to this veteran's experience, it doesn't hinge on the threat of force. It hinges on the relentless work of building consistent, earned trust.
The key message Officer Reyes wanted the public to grasp was this. The vast majority of officers genuinely want to help and protect their communities. And that respectful, two-way dialogue goes further than any policy reform.
He emphasized that the community's trust is the true resource that dictates their effectiveness. It's everything.
So if we connect this back to your world, remembering the central difficulty of the job is making quick, ethical judgments with incomplete information under immense pressure. The path to safer communities isn't just enforcement, it's consistent, earned trust.
His whole career confirmed that the small gestures, acknowledging a resident, spending an extra minute just to listen, or simply maintaining a visible presence, that's the currency of change. Trust is accumulated not through grand policy statements, but through constant, reliable human interactions.
So we'll leave you with a final provocative thought. Given that the success of community safety relies on this consistent earned trust, what is the most immediate small step you could take today to foster that dialogue, that genuine human connection in your own neighborhood? How do you contribute to that essential presence?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.